This is Peter Casper. I'd like to call the Town of Hebron's Board of Selectmen regular meeting to order April 18th at 7:01. Following the agenda, if you could all stand, please, and those that are here, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, I want to again thank all those at the town and Mr. Pettit for effectively helping us transition to a hybrid version of our meeting. So welcome to those that are here in person. So thank you very much. And as always, thank you for those that are joining us remotely. We appreciate everyone's participation and involvement. So thank you very much. Additions, number 3, additions or changes to the agenda. Mr. Tierney, anything on your end? Or?
So the only one thing I can suggest, excuse me, if we stick to the agenda pretty good, we should be okay, because I have staff here for a couple of different items, but if the board wanted to move up the Water Pollution Control Authority presentation, Mr. Kelly's coming in virtually, and then we have the other members, apparently we're all virtually as well. So if we want to move that up, we can get that out of the way, because I think the ARPA and then some of the stuff that the town planner is going to speak to is going to take some time.
So we like 8, that would be then referencing 8C, moving to 7A, I mean, towards before old business?
Yeah, I would think so, because I think that's rescue plan is going to take some time.
Okay. Does anyone on the board disagree with that?
That's what
Okay, that's fine. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? Good, Andy, on just that one change?
Yeah, I think if we
That makes sense.
stick to the
Absolutely.
business, we'll get out of here in a timely fashion.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Next section, section 4 is public comment. This section of the agenda is reserved for persons in attendance who wish to briefly address the Board of Selectmen. The board requests that a person's comments be limited to a single period lasting 3 minutes or less. While the board respects the right of the public to provide comment, this time is not intended for open discussion or a board response. Although residents who wish to request a dialogue should simply make arrangements to do so through the town manager's office or through myself as the board chair. Persons wishing to comment should type comment, and your name in the chat box will be recognized, or obviously anyone in attendance who wishes to comment, simply raise your hand and be recognized. So thank you very much for that. So with that said, do we have any public comments? Mr. Larson.
Okay. I just wanted to remind people it's springtime. Wildlife is on the move. As wildlife start having their young, the parents many times are out foraging for food. So as you're walking on the rails, the trails, or driving your cars, please be cognizant of the wildlife out there. Do your best not to interact with it, because it could adversely affect if you get between a mother and say her offspring, it becomes not a good, healthy situation. And I would hate to see injuries either to people or to the actual animal themselves because of that kind of interaction. Don't figure if you see a bird on the ground as if it's injured. That is a natural response where they're trying to just move you away from where their nests may be. So a little consciousness, a little respect for the animals that are out there. Also, please watch again. I've already picked one turtle up out of the road that somebody hit with a car. They don't understand what roads are. So a little bit of compassion, just a moment of either slowing down or attempting to avoid them would be great for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Donna, anyone wishing to speak in public comment? That's okay. Okay. And we'll have a section at the end too, so as we always do. All right, so I will move to section 5. Mr. Tierney, good to know, special recognition.
I do not have anybody.
Okay, thank you. But the floor is still yours, sir, as we move to 6, which would be our town manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get into the activities, recent activities, I don't know if everybody had a chance to look in your packet, the correspondence. The DOT is planning on paving Route 66, and a year after that, they want to come in and put rumble strips in the center of the road from Marlboro Town Line to Columbia Town Line. So I have to authorize that as the legal traffic authority. I didn't feel that I should just go ahead forward with that. I think I should bring it up to the board for discussion. And I did reach out to the state. They did get back to me. And I got a correspondence as I go through my classes at legal traffic authority. Everything's about safety and reduction of accidents and harm to people. So although I agree with it, they're willing to come out and meet with the town planner and myself to see if there's some areas that's really populated where houses are close to the road, where the noise might be a factor at night, if the windows are open or something like that. But it looks to me, without meeting with Matt yet, that the majority of Route 66 will have rumble strips as long as the board of selectmen concurs.
At least at this juncture, does anyone on the board have a fundamental objection to the concept?
Dan Larson, no. It would be interesting to know just what type of sound level is generated on the outside of the vehicle.
But it's a good question, and I asked that question myself, and I have it in writing. I can share the response with the whole board of selectmen tomorrow. But what they claim is it's a lot louder for the person in the vehicle than it is for outside the vehicle. I don't know if they have the actual decimal levels, but they said it's more to alert the person in the car, and hopefully the people in the cars aren't driving on the center of the whole length of town. But the noise, if they're 100 feet back, it shouldn't be any issue. But if you're right up on the road, it might be an issue. So they're willing to meet with Matt and myself, send in some areas where we think there might be some residential closeness to the road, and we could submit that, and they'll review it and get back to us. But I think the overall concept is safety.
Right.
And we're trying to work with them, especially with some school zones. I know that was one of Tiffany's issues.
Yeah.
And with the legal, as I'm learning more and more about the legal traffic authority, we have the ability to do some stuff in school zones.
Again, Dan Larson, in my past as being a fire department member, chief, whatever, I have had the sad reality of attending a number of accidents and in fact fatalities on 66, and some of them were head-ons. And if the rumble strip had been there, it may have saved the lives, and in fact, in one case, 2 16-year-old girls. And I ended up holding one of them in my arms while she died. So I am all in favor of anything to help, and I think it's a great idea.
Okay, good. Thank you for the support, and I'll move forward in that manner.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Under activities, as most of us here know, we had a public hearing on Tuesday. It went very well. The budget numbers in the flyer will be discussed later on in the packet. We designed and we put the Q code on there as requested. And the referendum of May 7th, we'll be erecting signs throughout. We've been busy working on the ARPA projects with the department heads, as you'll hear today. Also, we met, and we can save some of this for the presentation, but we met regarding the library equipment today with a contractor, which went favorably. I've been working with Michael Leary to try to finalize this plan of conservation and development, and he's hoping the Board of Selectmen will eventually endorse it. By the Board of Selectmen endorsing it, that helps it move forward. If not, the Planning and Zoning Commission themselves can endorse the final project. So I think the Board of Selectmen should weigh in on that. Yeah, just another reminder. We had our first session with the union negotiations with the Parks and Rec. They went, just set some dates and exchanged some things that they're considering. So we'll hopefully wrap that up pretty soon, but that started. And then we anticipate starting Public Works within the next month or so. As I said, we met with the company regarding the library. I'm jumping ahead of myself. That went very well. And we're working with, I can't really divulge yet because it's not carved out in stone yet, but we're working with some property owners some new projects possibly to come to town. They're still in the planning stages, so we can't really say much more than that, but Matt and I have been meeting with some property owners and developers, so hopefully some things are gonna start to, pop. So it's been pretty busy. Thank you.
Okay. So that will move us to the addition, the change in the agenda, which was on the previous agenda noted as 8C, which is the Water Pollution Control Authority discussion. So, Mr. Tierney?
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So we're gonna have a PowerPoint presentation, a brief one. It's only, 9 pages, I think. 9 pages long. With us, we have the members of the WPCA and Kevin Kelly, the administrators, virtual from Florida. He says it's not raining and it was nice and warm down there when I talked to him today. So I'm gonna give you an overview of what they're doing, their budget, their CIP, and just before they start, like anything, the weather's been so wet this year, probably the wettest on record. That's raising havoc on our roads, but it's also raising havoc with the WPCA. And they'll speak to that with all this extra water going in. We get charged per 1,000 gallons going through Colchester. And those pumps are running more than normal and the numbers are up. So when the numbers are up, it's a bigger expense to the town and it doesn't appear at this point to have an end in sight. So we really need to pay attention to that. Without further ado, Chris, I'll turn it over to you and Kevin. And
Yep, very good. Thank you, folks. This is Chris Hamburger. I'm the chair of the WPCA. I put together some slides. We were asked to come in and kind of give an update. Andy touched on several of the items. So you can move forward in the slides if you would. Who's ever in charge? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the board members. I don't think anybody's on other than Kevin in the administrator position. Going to give a little bit of the background, the history for those that don't know of the sewer system. We're going to look at the proposed budget we have for 24, 25, and go into the drivers that affect our budget. And then the next item is one of those. In fact, it gets its own slide because it's what's called I&I, inflow and infiltration, that Andrew was alluding to with the rainfall. It's a big driver. And then forecasting any capital improvements to our system or the systems downstream that we have to fund in part. And then lastly, talk about the WPCA administrator position itself. So you can move ahead if you would. Next slide. So we're a autonomous 5-member board. Currently we have 4. We have a vacancy that we would like to get filled. There's myself. Ben Gilmore is our board chair, co-chair, Kevin Grady and Jim Riley. And then Kevin Kelly is administrator. And I just want to recognize these folks because all of the board members have their careers are in sewer systems per se. And in my opinion, you couldn't have really a much better stacked WPCA board. And Kevin has been the administrator now for, I don't know, 10 or 11 years. I've lost track, and he does just a fantastic job. So I just wanted to recognize everybody in that regard. So next slide, please. Anybody got anything? No? Okay. So the system was installed back in the early 90s. It's 30 plus years old, and it's starting to show some signs of aging. Consists of 14 miles of gravity and 5 miles of force main, 365 manholes, I'm just reading here, flowing through 9 different pump stations, and we support 745 customers. When the system was first installed, and it still holds true, there's a connection fee that's assessed to connect. And we had, as folks might remember, a referendum back in, I don't know if it was 19 or 20, but it was to get money, bonded money to go in and renovate all of the pump stations. It's being done in a phased approach. We completed phase 1 just late last year. I mean, it was really done almost the beginning of the year, but there were some, always some hanging items. Phase 2 for the remaining stations slated for 2026. And then to give you an idea of how it works, Lebanon, which is a very small system just around the lake, they flow into our system. We flow to Colchester, and that's where the billing is assessed that Andy mentioned. We get billed currently at a rate of $5.19 per 1,000 gallons. And that does change. It goes up like anything else with costs. And then ultimately, all the waste gets flowed for processing out of East Hampton. So any improvements or work done downstream, which we'll talk about further in the slides, gets billed back to us at a rate consistent with our percentage of flow into the system. Next slide, this is budget. Kevin was gonna cover this one, if it's okay.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I just want to go over this worksheet so you can compare what we did last year and what we're doing this year. And what this is coming down to is our total revenue is going to be short by about $55,822, which is going to require about a $50 increase in our EDU rate. Right now, our EDU's at $592 annually. So we're going to have to raise that just to balance this budget. I'm going to just run through a few things here. Our user fees, I get all these numbers from our revenue collector, and we're projecting fees of $630,000, and that's based on the 592. You can read along with me. Interest, the delinquent fees are going up. She expects, she's been having a lot of luck collecting some of the old fees. Connection fees, we never know what kind of businesses are going to start, how many properties are going to connect. So some years it's good, some years it's nothing. So right now we're just throwing a number in there at 5,000 just as an estimate. As you all know, we've been in court with Lebanon for their fees. We estimate that we're probably going to get $30,000 out of them. And just so you all know that we've billed them and they owe us at this time $344,000 in change. So that's what we're arguing about in court. Their meter has not been working properly, and this has been going on for years and years. So unfortunately, the wheels of justice move very slowly. So we've been chipping away at this, and accordingly, you'll see under our attorney fees, our legal fees, we're over on our general ledger by $4,400 at this point this year. And we anticipate next year probably going to be the same because we're spending so much time in court. Our administrator position, we budgeted $20,000 for next year. I have a feeling you're probably going to need more than that. And we're working with the town on that, and Andy, and we've discussed this and trying to work out how we're going to handle this. And, hopefully within another month or two, we're going to figure this out. And our expenses, really the big one here is the Colchester contract. Next year, I budgeted $540,000, and those are going by this year's numbers. Okay. As Andy mentioned, with all this rain that comes in and the infiltration, every time we have a rainy month, for an example, last month, we had over 9 million gallons that we got billed for flowing into Colchester. The bill last month for Colchester was $49,908. That just gives you an example. When it's a rainy month, we get hit very hard. We're going to be over in this line this year at the end of the year by, I'm guessing, projecting about $160,000. We budgeted for $491 per 1,000 gallons. We're now paying $519 per 1,000 gallons. When you're talking millions and millions of gallons, that number builds quickly. So anyhow, I'm thinking that most of this is going to be able to be covered in our operating fund balance. And whatever the balance is at the end of the year, what doesn't get spent gets rolled over into the sinking fund. So I won't know that until the end of the year. So then we'll address that problem then, but we're hoping we can cover that within the budgets of the WPCA. The problem is it drains for future construction work that we're going to need, and our needs, you know, we can talk about that in a little bit. The other big line item in the budget is joint facilities. They handle all our maintenance. I deal with Scott Clayton over at East Hampton. He gave me a number of $100,170 for this coming year, but that includes all our mission controls. And what that is the electronic communication between the pumps and the generators over to East Hampton Joint Facilities. So we know when something breaks, we know when something isn't running. We know when something's running extra heavy, as in heavy flows. So what this did is this took the place, this was all put in this new facility upgrade, but this took the place of all the alarm systems. And that was all done through the telephone system. So that line now for telephone is 0. But we absorb that into the joint facilities line item, and it probably cut that cost in half, just giving you a round number. So I'm thinking personally, this number is not going to be as high at the end of the year just because of this facility upgrade. These pumps aren't breaking as much as they used to. The maintenance on them is going down, so I'm hoping this continues. So, but I still have to budget the number they give me. So hopefully there's going to be left over in that line, and we can roll that right into the sinking fund. Other than that, the other big line is the allocation to the sinking fund at the very end. That number of $45,451 is a misprint. That was from the previous year. This year we actually put $76,015 into the sinking fund. Hopefully that can be used at the end of the year when we're trying to balance everything to help offset that Colchester bill. But this year we're cutting it down to $20,000, and the reason is we're trying to reduce the amount we have to increase the EDU rate. So as I said, we're going to try to hold that to $50. We'll see how the rest of the season goes for the Colchester Billings. Hopefully the rain stops. This is early in the year for us to be doing the budget. We normally send this to public hearing in June. Our information's a lot better in June. But we've been requested to do this earlier and earlier, so that's what we're trying to do. The next slide, please. Does anybody have any questions on that before I move on?
Yeah, we have a couple, go ahead, Keith, you can go first.
Your last 10 years, what's been the EDU increase over that time period?
I can give them all to you. In 92, it was $290. In 93, they dropped it to $145. In 94 and 95, it was $310. In 96 through 99, it was $300. In 2000, they dropped it back to $280. 2001 through 2006, it was $270. 2007 to 2008, it was $290. 2009, it was $300. 2010, it was $320. 2011 to 2019, it was $350. 2020 to 2021, it was $510. 2022 was $550, and 2023 was $592. Just like every utility that we have, whether it's our electric bill or telephone bill or cable bill, it goes up every year.
Yep. Thank you.
Peter Casper, just one question on that. Is there a way to compare the EDU to other communities and services? I mean, do you have a relative comparison?
We've looked at that quite a few times. I don't have those numbers with me, but they're comparable.
Yeah, again, that's it. I don't need.
They seem to be all over the place. Some are lower, some are much higher.
This wouldn't be considered out of the realm of reasonable then, generally?
No. And I mean, as Kevin said, it was held steady for like 8 or 9 years from whatever he just said to 20, I forget the numbers, 2011 or 2010 to 2019. And then we were faced with raising it, and it's been raised that started it, and then it was raised the next 3 years. And in fact, we're going to have to do it again this year.
In hindsight, we
Thank you.
probably should have been raising them more steadily throughout the years and banking more money. But
Yeah, that's what we're talking about in the board is even if we have a balanced budget, and it seems strange to me that in the past they actually lowered it. I mean, that's nice, that's goodwill, but going forward, we have talked about, and I think we are going to go ahead and make small incremental changes year to year, even if we are somehow balanced and we don't have all this drastic billing from coming out of Colchester.
excuse me.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Dan Larson, I have a few questions. Are you still having issues with people throwing in items into the sewer system? That's one question. And then my other question is, are there any incentives for people to utilize low gallonage type devices? And then a third question is, are there actual flow meters on people's homes and businesses, or is it all by device count?
All right, I'll answer the last one first. The only ones that are metered are the high users, as in the assisted living, the car wash, the restaurants. Other than that, it's all done by EDU, which is an estimated, it's based on 150 gallons per day per family, which is low in comparison to the rest of the state. So someday that's going to have to be revisited, and that'll probably up the whatever the rate charge is too. Your other question about, do we still have problem with people throwing stuff in the sewers? Yes. One problem area has been Hope Valley, Dan. We are constantly cleaning that pump station out, finding all kinds of debris inside the pumps. It breaks the pumps constantly. And that's an expensive thing on the weekends when we have to respond on a Saturday or Sunday or in the middle of the night when the pumps get clogged up and die. What was your third question again?
Any incentives for people to utilize low gallonage type devices?
Not currently.
No. We did see, though, that, and this is just my own personal observation, since COVID and people working from home, our flow rates have jumped considerably.
Yeah.
A lot of people working from home.
That's logical, I guess, right?
Say people are home, so they're utilizing the facility readily.
Yep.
I think, again, one of the issues that, is how do all these things get funded? You have, the users who, of course, have a direct financial responsibility, but we're also, with the bonding, things like that. And at what point, it's a great system to have, but, what would the average household pay a year? Do you have that kind of information?
I understand your question. I'm Kevin, I don't.
Yeah, you lost me a little bit there.
What do they pay a year? That's the EDU?
Yeah, the average household. What does that usually run a family of four, say, or
It goes by the size of the house, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, et cetera. And it's I think every house is, I could be wrong, Kevin, correct me, but I think they're all paying the $590. I don't know that we have much difference from one to the next.
Yeah, most residents are based on the single EDU, which is $592. We have another typo in the worksheet here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's supposed to be a 592.
Yeah. The ones that pay more are, you'll get a lot of the businesses, the schools will pay either like 20 or 30 EDUs. The assisted living is somewhere around 25, I believe, or maybe even more than that. But, you know, some of these big users pay quite a bit.
Thank you.
Peter, those questions from Board of Finance and Technologies. Selectmen.
Yeah, and I know the Board of Finance has been an integral part of this process of developing more information, so I would make an exception for that scenario. So there's a Board of Finance question.
Don't guys hand up.
Now, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure who's this question is most appropriate for, but we had been, and this was 2 years ago. I heard your number today saying I think you service 754 or 700 something customers. Is that basically the same as the EDU count? Because 2 years ago we were
No.
told it was, but
No,
We bill 1,123 EDUs per.
okay, yeah, that we were at the time we were told somewhere around 1,000, so that answers that. My next question is in terms of the future. I know that many other towns, when it comes to the major maintenance, the major, the rebuild type stuff that we've been into here, there's a calculation that the people on the sewer pay one rate, and then the town pays a separate rate. And I don't know how they calculate it, but I know at this point the town is essentially bonded for the entire upgrade, and the users have not had a premium assigned to them. Is that something that is being looked at in the future? Because and I am on the sewer line. I'm not opposed to paying a little extra because I know the costs of dealing with septic systems when you have issues there, as well as just the straight, annual pumping or however often you pump.
Well, actually, the users are paying more at this time because they're paying taxes to pay off these bonds like the rest of the taxpayers. Plus, they're paying their EDU rate for usage, so they are paying more at this time. But
Okay,
what other towns do, I don't know.
When it comes time to, I'm assuming that the bonding that we did 2 years ago, three and a half years ago, paid for phase one, and there'll be more costs for phase two. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we approved over $7 million for the whole project. We bonded half of that. I'm just throwing a number out there for the first phase.
Yeah.
First phase came in under budget, so that'll be used towards the second half, and that's going to have to be bonded again in 2 years in 2026. I mean, we've been talking to the town about that.
So have we currently set aside any money from user fees to cover a larger portion of the bonding expense when we get to phase two, and or has the commission even been discussing anything having to do with that?
No.
Well, that's the whole idea of having the sinking fund, to have money for handling some of these capital items. But when we run over budget because of inflow problems, it's eating away at that money that's in the operation budget for these future capital items. So do we have money? We're not going to have a lot left at the end of this year.
Okay. So will that be at some point discussed in terms of increasing rates so that there's more money to put aside? I mean, I understand, Kevin, that you can't, and Chris, that you guys can't easily predict the maintenance requirements year to year, other than as the system gets older, the pumps are probably going to break more. But in terms of dollar
Well-
amount, but, I mean, I know other towns actually have a separate fund where part of the user fees goes into a separate fund. And at time of major reconstruction, that money is used to supplement the monies from the town and from wherever else it comes from. And has this ever come up?
We've
Because
been
we
talking,
had that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
we've been talking about that when we talked to that company Waterworth about
Yeah.
doing studies on what we're going to need in the future and how to plan for that and what our rate increases should be. And
Okay.
that hopefully that'll come up sometime in the future. We didn't budget for it this year because we're already scraping. So, but we've
Sure.
talked to the town about it, and hopefully that's going to be something that's going to happen so we can plan for the future.
Thank
But
you, Kevin.
finan-
Yeah,
but-
no,
but- But,
go ahead, Chris.
but financially, the only lever we have is charging the users the EDU rate.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and to make up that kind of difference, the EDU rate would just get completely out of hand. And the town,
I understand that.
what I failed to mention in my introduction on the history, the town, technically the system is owned by the town.
Right.
Not the users. So the town owns some of the responsibility, in our view, for the maintenance of it and the upkeep and the repairs and the upgrades, et cetera, as it ages.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we could get into all sorts of discussions about that, which I have no absolute intention of doing.
Yep.
I just bring that up simply because that was a discussion item as we put together bonding perspectives back in 2019, 2018, in preparation for actually applying for the bond.
Right.
You know, how come the town's paying for the whole thing? And so I'm just carrying that forward. That's all I have. Thank you guys very much. And Kevin, it's good to see you. And Chris, pleasure to meet you.
Yep, same.
Okay, and it looks like we have a question. Oh, sure, Mal, the chair of our Board of Finance, Diane, I call upon you if you'd like to ask questions.
I do have some questions, and I thank you for the opportunity. First, I want to thank all of the WPCA board members and Kevin Kelly. I know that we've been asking every year for your budgets to be done earlier and earlier, but I want to make sure that both boards, Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen, are well aware of what we need to do to make sure that we're supporting you. So thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you.
So a couple of things. If some of the questions have been asked and answered, I want to go back to what I think Kevin, you had said it. We have the lawsuit and we have over 344,000 billed to Lebanon that they're disputing. I think at the beginning of what you said, we only expect to get 30,000. Is that right? Can you just confirm that?
Yeah, that's all we've been collecting per year.
We've only been collecting 30,000 a year.
Yeah, they're basing their, without getting into the weeds here, they're basing their thought on what they owe by their estimated water usage from a sample of their customers. And there's a lot to the argument. As right now, I'm billing them per the EDU rate that I bill Town of Hebron customers for. And they don't like the idea that they're paying that much. But I don't have anything else to go by. I had to come up with some kind of formula to bill them because I couldn't estimate bills anymore because I didn't have any information. Their meters don't work. Every month we go up when we read the meter and it reads 0 gallons per minute. So I can't use the numbers I have. So that's the only thing I could do is bill them by what I bill the Town of Hebron customers. And that's what we're going by. And over the years, the list I have in front of me, started in 2019. And if I'm correct, there's a couple years that I was estimating before that bills. So, that's 344 840.38 since 2/1/13/2019.
Okay. Why aren't the meters working?
Don't know. We're working with,
Good question.
they have an engineering firm, and our attorney and our meter expert, if you will, has been discussing it with them. They brought in an engineering company to get something in there that we agree to that will work. And then I think the plan would be to monitor it and determine what their actual flows are, and presumably use that to go back to 2019 or whatever, and use that kind of a flow average over that back period to come up with what they really owe us, whether it's a higher or lower than what we're saying. Because right now we're just using the EDU rate. We have no meter, just like our customers have no meter. And it's all, as Kevin said, it's all we have to go by. So there is work being done to get something in place. But my guess,
Even if they settled this tomorrow,
right?
Yeah.
it would probably be a year before we can sit down and do all the accounting to figure out what
Right.
the actual numbers are going to be.
Yeah,
Because we got to have a year's worth of information.
yeah. You got to
It's
have
gonna
some
be a while.
decent. You got to have some decent sample size of data to go backward like that. Yeah.
Well, it's six years of information, 6 years of billing, but is there a meter between Hebron and Colchester?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's how we're billed.
Right. So why isn't there a meter between Lebanon and Hebron?
There
Well,
is.
it's
It's
supposed to be, but it's not working.
It's a different design. We have a huge force main that's metered that goes from Hebron to Colchester. They have a 2-inch force main that runs from Lebanon to Hebron, and there isn't enough flow in the design that they have to give us accurate readings. And that's what we're arguing about. The design of this whole thing isn't right. So we've been going back and forth on it.
Oh my, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for the additional
Yeah.
detail. And
Well-
so all of our flow, I'll just say it because I know everybody knows this, but I'll say it out loud. All of the flows right now that are going to Colchester would include Lebanon. So we're paying for everything, basically.
That's
And
Correct.
okay, and not being properly reimbursed by Lebanon, and don't have a good way of billing or understanding how much the flow is. So, okay, thank you.
That's right.
I-
Yeah. Yeah. They want to use a
You-
metering system, which is a meter would be great. I wish we had it on all our customers, but not having a functioning meter, we have no choice but to bill them something using a standard EDU process that we use for Hebron. That's
So
it.
is it the EDUs like by number of customers again?
EDUs,
Or by
Yeah, we bill
dwelling?
them.
Yeah, it's an
Right now-
EDU for, go ahead, Kevin.
right now I am billing them for 150 gallons a day per customer
Yeah.
per month. So there's a formula if you look on the bills that we send to Lebanon every month.
And I believe it's all residential there, right? It's just around the lake, so
That's correct.
it's likely one EDU per however many customers. I don't know that for fact, but that's probably
And-
what
and
it is.
And
Okay.
then on top of that, I bill them for the maintenance, their percentage of maintenance for the system. So there's an additional charge on top of that. But, I've argued this with the attorneys, and we were trying to get them to accept the EDU rate and just abandon the meters altogether, and they won't do it. So, we argued that in court, and it's just not going to happen.
Okay, I thank you. And we talked about, I think Mal asked some questions as well. I apologize, my camera isn't connected tonight, so sorry. But you've been talking about a sinking fund, and you also talked about, I think, the general fund balance. Are they the same thing, and how much is it?
We have a fund balance in the operation fund. Now, this is a couple of months old because Elaine gave me these numbers before she left. And I had $255,000 in the operation fund. And then there's an assessment fund that if we need to use that, we have to go to the Board of Finance and ask permission. And there's $106,000 in that.
And that assessment fund, Kevin, was residuals from the original connections. They were called assessments at the time, right?
I think you're right, yes.
Okay.
We call them connection fees now. They originally were called sewer assessment funds. Same thing.
Right. And we also talked about phase 2, which would be 5 pump stations being replaced. And you said because you said phase 1 had 4 replaced, you estimated, did you say 7 million? 3.5 was parsed for phase 1. You have a little bit of money left over. How much is left over?
I believe there's like $300,000 or $400,000, and I'm just shooting from the hip on that, so don't hold me to
Okay.
it. But
Okay.
the numbers came in low, and there was a couple of change orders that we had to take care of during the project. Actually, there's only 4 pump stations that are going to be done in the second phase, because
okay.
we're not doing Amston Lake because that's a fairly new pump station.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. And so the real question is, what do you estimate the cost will be in 2026 to replace those 4 pumps? Will the 3.5 million still cover it, or will, like everything else, prices going up, will it be higher?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't looked at that really yet.
Okay.
We don't know yet. We've talked to the engineer about the inflation rate and everything else. For an example, you guys are doing a project in town that when we first went out for grant money for it, I forget what the actual numbers were, but 2 years later, it was $1 million higher for a road project, and we had to go back and try for more money. So construction costs keep going up, and the same is going to happen here. So I have a feeling we'll end up scaling the project back a little bit.
Oh,
I'm a little more optimistic because when we did this work, it was right during COVID, and supply chain, as everybody knows, was affected, and we were having the schedule got hurt. The budget came in under, but I believe costs were going up even then, and yet we came in somewhat under budget. So I know everything's going up, and of course 26 is a whole 2 years away. So I guess if we can stay the same, it would be good. I don't know that we will.
okay. And I think my last questions were around that software and I had attended the presentation that I think you said it was Waterworth of the software that they were talking about. And I thought it was a great presentation and it would be a terrific help for you to understand perhaps, how much you need to charge for ongoing, expenses versus maintenance versus long-term capital. And as the conversation went last fall, they said it's actually, you can use it for other things within the town. Perhaps the, capital, all of our equipment and things like that. So you could understand over time how funds needed to be built basically over time so that it's not dramatic on the taxpayers when you go out to purchase something or replace something. I would say, I know there was some conversation back and forth. I thought before Elaine left, I thought she said that there had been a discussion or there was a request that the town pick up half of the cost of the software or all the cost of the software. It never got added to the town's budget. And so, as we kick that can down the road, as we keep kicking the can down the road, we keep kicking the can down the road of understanding what it is that we need to really support your system overall. So I was disappointed that we didn't get it into the town's budget, and it sounds like you're not going to add it either. But I was a supporter of that, and I think the other Board of Finance members also were, just so you know. And let's see, my last question was around I think there was an administrator amount in the budget here. Did I lose it or am I?
Yeah, no, it's there.
Oh, there
It's
is.
there. It's there. There's $20,000, I think, earmarked, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. And so, oh yeah, I see it. Okay.
So there's a separate slide on that topic at the end here.
Okay. All right. I'll stop
no,
asking questions then.
no, go, okay. Sorry.
Thank you. If you're going to go over that and have more stuff. to go over,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
fine.
yeah, sorry. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. All right, continue, please.
Yep.
Presentation.
All right. One of the big problems that we have with the system is the grinder pumps. Now, all these properties that are lower than the gravity sewer has to be pumped to the sewer. Okay. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I have dog issues. I'm watching the pup tonight. So, anyhow, so these grinder pumps, they break all the time, and we own them, as in we, the town. So we're responsible for fixing them at this time. In the next phase of this facility upgrade, we had planned on replacing all these grinder pumps. There's 54 of them. We're going to replace them all, and we're going to turn them over. It's our intent to turn them over to the property owners, seeing they'll have brand new pumps and should last them a long, long time. We've already been talking to the attorneys on how we're going to do this. So a couple of years, we'll be addressing that. I'm sure we'll get some feedback on it, but that's our intention. Other drivers, as I say, the pump station repairs, we anticipate that this is going to be reduced with all these new pumps inside the wet wells and such. And we already talked about Lebanon and what's happening there. You want to go to the next slide, please? Okay, Chris, you want to talk about the inflow?
Yeah, sure. We kind of touched on it already, and we're running long here. So common term is I&I, it's inflow and infiltration. So it's any kind of liquid fluid that gets into the system that's really not part of the normal sewer. It can come from typically groundwater driven by the rainfall we're seeing. As we saw last year, was like 1.5 times normal rainfall. It can be from leaking joints in the conduits, damaged conduits, leaking manholes, people with sump pumps discharging into the sewer system, which is illegal, etc. Anything like that is part of our flow that we're billed for. So we did a study back in the beginning or spring of 2017. I think it was April to June with flow metering, where it was upstream, downstream meters to look at, where we targeted a few areas. And of course, it was a particularly dry year, unlike what we've had the past one or two. So we really got no useful data out of it. Wright Pierce engineering firm that worked with us and designed the pump upgrades that we just completed continue to support us, and they're working with East Hampton joint facilities, looking at some potential targeted areas that might be a problem. And as Kevin had already mentioned, what we are seeing, you might expect it, is that the runtime data on these pumps at the pump stations trends up and really runs almost parallel with rainfall total. So it's obvious that we're getting some type of infiltration in the system that's costing us downstream our billings to Colchester going up with rainfall, as we mentioned. So we're recommending to do an additional study. Projected cost, it's very rough. Again, from Wright Pierce is about $250K. Connecticut Deep has clean water funding, which we used last time, and they provide about 55%. So that'd be $137.5K, and then the town would be on the hook for the other 112. So we've used the data from that, and this would not be using flow meters. This is a different methodology, so you're not as dependent on rainfall or lack of it. So this would identify ideally areas where we have breaches in the system, where we're getting infiltration. It would require potential repairs, of course, down the line, lining. You can line the conduits, etc. So we're going to be probably asking the town to help us with that, to go off and perform this study. We don't have anything in our budget for it this year. We are pursuing the deep clean water funding. Any questions? Okay, next.
We talked about how we're responsible for anything downstream from us, our percentage of flow. Okay. And just so you know what's coming ahead, for this coming year, we budgeted $14,000 Colchester improvements because they're installing some meters and they need some ball valves to go in place to support these meters. And we're on the hook for about $14,000 for that. We budgeted for that. The big one's coming up. They've got pumps and valves at the Prospect Hill pump station that's scheduled about 5 years out. We don't have a cost yet. I talked to their director about a week ago, and as he gets these numbers, he'll give them to us. They also have some building repairs at pump stations that we flow through that we're going to have to help with. You know, they're talking about a roof in one of them. And the big one coming up is East Hampton Joint Facilities is planning a big improvement to their Middletown pump station at a projected cost of 12 to 15 million. And when their last meeting, they were talking anywhere from 5 to 10 years out. So what we have to start thinking about is getting our portion, which is then going to be anywhere from 2 million to 2.5 million, into the 5-year CIP plan. So we have to start thinking about that because that is coming. So as we get more information, we'll keep giving it to the town. But, you know, they're just starting to talk about it and they're starting to make plans on it and have it all engineered. So this is coming. And the WPCA is going to need help with this. It's going to be, you know, might have to go out to bond again for something like this. But we're looking at least a couple of $1 million. Just go ahead. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Dan Larson. I understand the pumps. I understand that type of equipment. I just have a hard time. I don't see them paying for our buildings. Maybe it's being petty, but
They don't flow
as I
through
said,
us. We flow through them.
I understand, but I would think that they'd be responsible for their own buildings. We'd be responsible for assisting with the pumps and that type of equipment that would have wear and tear on it, but.
Trust me, Dan, I argue every bill that comes across my desk, every single one of them. And anything that I do pay, percentage of flow that Lebanon has from us, they get a bill for it. So not that they're paying it, but they get a bill for it.
So Peter Casper, so the facilities, is this an expected contribution when it comes to facilities or a contractual obligation?
It's a municipal agreement. It's contractual.
Thank you.
Diane has a question.
Oh, Ann?
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me. Appreciate it. Thank you for this information. I really appreciate it. And I'll say all the more reason that we need to be more aligned with the town schedule so that we can get this information into the town's budget and CIP plans, rather than having it almost be like a year behind. Because at this point, the 24-25 budget and CIP plan is already put together and going to referendum with an amount. So that's kind of that. This is why I asked for it to be moved up, and I think the Board of Finance members agree with that. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
So the
Continue,
14th,
Kevin.
okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the 14,000 that's noted there to Colchester, that's in our budget already, correct, Kevin?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's not the town's obligation. That's covered in our budget. It's the 5 to 10 years out, East Hampton.
Yep.
That's the one. Yeah, okay.
Understood. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, yep, okay, thank you. Yeah, next, I'm sorry. So lastly, our administrator, Kevin, is not named here. Historically, this has been a town employee that has been funded in part. I say in part because some of the work was being done, I think, on the town employee, the salary that they were getting as a town employee. So we have a line item there for $20,000. Kevin is retired, as we know. I think as everybody knows, if they don't, he's retired, living the life in Florida, except he's still putting in a good 20 hours, probably a week, doing the work that you just saw from the WPCA. So he doesn't want to do it forever. And we need to identify a replacement. And the $20,000 that we typically budget just will not cut it. That works out to, like less than $20 an hour. And to get any kind of a qualified candidate to do the kind of work that he does, that the woman before him did, you're not going to find anybody. So at some point, we're going to probably need some assistance from the town on that, or we have to roll a larger salary into our budget and increase the EDU.
Yeah, I guess that's it, right, Chris?
That's it. And boy, that took a while. I thought it might be more than 10 minutes. Any other final questions?
No, Chris, this is Andy. Thank you. I could jump in, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please go ahead, Andy.
I've been working with Kevin right along, and none of these numbers are shocking to me. They've been working with us. We never got that request for the software, so it's still out there if that's something they want to pursue, but they would have to bring that, forward. But these 5 to 10 year expenses we knew about were coming, and finally they're here 5 or 10 years out. So we'll start planning for that. We're putting a package together. Mallet brought this up the other night. Of these large ticket items, we're assembling a whole list of those with trying to get actual numbers, working with the schools, now the WPCA, so infrastructure with the roads and bridges, of course, the public works facility. So we're starting to put plans together. Fire department's looking for a fire truck, so there'll be some short-term expenses. There'll be some possible short notes if needed, but then also some bonding proposals. So this isn't a surprise to us. We just need to get the information and accurate numbers before we bring it forward, and we'll be diligently working on that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
See, Diane, did you have any final question, Diane?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for putting the time in, for all the volunteer work, Kevin, even your volunteer work, because that's basically what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts on behalf of the town. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Diane, and the Board of Finance for continuing to push this forward, this important topic forward. So thank you for your efforts, this topic.
Okay, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Sorry for consuming your meeting.
No, it's important, and so thank you for the time you took to prepare and for inform us. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm going to drop off unless anybody has anything else.
Completely understandable.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
that wraps up what was originally listed as 8C. So that will move us to on the agenda 7, which is old business. So 7A, American Rescue Plan, state and local recovery funds. And we have some town staff, so I'll defer to Mr. Tierney to open up this section of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attached to the status report. Current balance of ARPA reserve is $232,159. We have Craig Bryant, Parks and Rec Director, and Matt Bordeaux, the town planner, will be in attendance to report of progress of approved projects and provide justification information for a few projects with funding status yet to be determined. And I also have Donna here. We have quite a bit of progress and where we are in the process with some of these projects. So I think this will be a good informational meeting tonight. We can follow up with the schedule, but Donna, do you want to start up at the top of the list and kind of quickly go down and give a status, and then we can turn it over to the departments when it comes to their projects?
Sure, I can quickly go through the security measures. Andy and I have been and will be meeting with a few different vendors to go over cameras and other things for that project. We have made some progress with installing updated alarms in several of our buildings, so we are moving ahead with that one. And that includes the vandal-proof cameras for veterans. We have a meeting with 2 different vendors on Monday. So, and one of them is, we believe, on state contract, so that'll be good.
And the panic alarms are put in at the town clerks.
Yeah.
So we've getting a lot of all new fire alarms.
The virtual meeting room conference equipment, you can see what we've done here. This seems to be working. We met today with the Valley Communication about the library project. We got them to trim up about $10,000 off of their proposal. So we're right within the budget. They're going to send us a revised quote. We will take a look at that and hopefully be able to move forward with that soon.
So if that's within budget, I'm sorry,
Go on.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, that's okay.
If that's within budget, I just want to make sure that I have the authorization to sign that contract. If it was going to be more money, I would bring it back, but it sounds like with what they're trimming, that brings us more in line of the number we were proposing.
It's in line with the budget, and it's already been agreed to, of course. Yes.
Okay, that was one of the first projects we approved.
Yeah. Right.
They worked quite well with us to get, we went from a 98-inch screen to an 86-inch screen was one of the things which helped eliminate the box truck that they needed to transport the big screen. So we're getting there with that. Emergency generator for Stonecroft, that is just a matter of getting that invoice processed. We don't have it yet, but that project is just getting buttoned up, so that'll be taken care of very soon. The cyber threat assessments and security measures, we are chipping away at that right now. We're just working with Novus, our IT vendor, to finish up some of the reviews they're doing and implementing some of their recommendations with software and hardware. Wall Street sidewalk project is in the works. I'm going to let Andy speak on that.
Yeah, so we finally worked very well with SHPO, and we proceeded without the expensive wall. So I anticipate, I don't have the numbers, I've reached out to our town engineers to try to give us a estimate. We're not gonna need all that ARPA money, so we anticipate giving what we're gonna use the steep grant first, and then the CIP monies we budgeted. But if whatever ARPA monies we can give back to the town, we would. So I don't want to float a number out there, but I'm thinking it might possibly between $90,000. We'll see. The project's not done yet, but we don't have to put that expensive wall in.
The next one is the implicit bias training, and we do intend to schedule a couple more sessions. We have a lot of new employees, and we also want to extend that to elected officials if they're interested. We'll probably try to schedule at least one of those sessions for evening or weekend. So we will continue to work on that. And the next on the list is Parks and Rec. So we will turn it over. Fred, and this is the spot. Yeah, the exit spot for that camera.
What about the table? Like, can we get caught on the table if we sit so there? Is there any harm in that?
I think that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, should work.
It seems kind of silly.
Otherwise, it's like you're on The Voice.
I know.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear, you don't want to hear.
Are we gonna do the swivel chairs, turn around?
Yeah.
I would
That would be
totally,
fun.
that would be very,
fun, yeah.
not gonna lie.
Those like it spin, yeah.
So obviously Parks and Rec has had we have quite a few projects on here, and we thank you very much for approving them and giving us the funding. We've been working on all these projects for 2+ years now, and one of the biggest problems we've run into on all the projects is space. That's it's still an issue we're trying to figure out. So So if you want, I can just kind of go through each individual one in a row, tell you the status and kind of tell you what else we might need with that project. Make it a little easier. So, the skate park, we just received a rendering, for a new skate park. The original idea was to do a full concrete, park. We've already demolished the old one. It's being sent to skate park subcommittee to review and get notes on the actual rendering itself. From there, based on those notes, we'll go put a bid package together and try to get a site amendment through planning and zoning. Biggest issue with the skate park is the amount of money that we have allocated for it through ARPA funding. Right now, we have $145,000 for a concrete park. Concrete is running anywhere from $35 to $65 per square foot. That's about an 8,300 square foot pad that we have currently if we follow the same footprint. So there's, a couple different options. It's asking for additional funding through ARPA for the skate park. It's going to a smaller scale park using modular equipment, which would be steel and wood. Our last park was all plywood and, lasted a while, but it's, modern standards and safety. The modular does work. It just may not be as unique or as exciting for some of the kids that want to use it. I did a company that does the modular parks. They just completed one in Meriden, roughly the same size as ours for $149,000 for just equipment installation construction. That didn't include the concrete pad. We have $145,000 in ARPA funds. So that becomes kind of the issue with the skate park.
When do you think you would have a number to state what additional dollars would be needed?
Yeah, so I can do estimates based on concrete. The problem is the rendering we got cost $2,700. If we want full construction prices, we're looking at $14,000 to $25,000 for just construction documents. So we'd already be losing, $25,000 potentially to get a better estimate of what the final cost is going to go to. These companies that build it won't give you a price unless they're winning the bid.
We have to have a number.
I know. So yeah, so I mean, with 145, it's not going to get much done.
So how did we, I don't remember, how did we come up with the 145 to begin with?
That was a number that had been, when the ARPA stuff started, it was pretty much the same time that I came on board. So that was part of the 5-year plan originally, I believe. And it wasn't on for the current year CIP. It was just a number, without doing much research that got moved over to the ARPA. And,
Okay. But it had been previously developed and Ken, do you want to?
And Jordan.
Yeah.
So originally, 2 years ago, the footprint was gonna be pickleball and skate park on that same footprint. Now we're not pursuing that avenue anymore. So the entire footprint would be skate park. Craig's talking about now is a lot larger than what the 145 was based on. That makes sense?
Do we need all that space for the skate park? Because if the original plan had been a smaller scale to replace
Yeah.
what had originally been there, I don't want to take away recreation space for kids. I believe very strongly in that, but
sure.
if we were going to go with that smaller size anyway, when we had this concept to combine both, can we go a
The
little smaller?
original plan wasn't well received by either the subcommittee or even we've talked regularly with the Ram Skateboard Club, which actually has about 30, 40 kids in it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty consistent each year that they have that many. So two things, a lot of feedback from them was more space the better, even if it's just open space that they can just use. And actually, I can send this around. I actually have a picture of the rendering and a couple other things. I'll pass a couple things over to you guys. But but one of the ideas was this to be friendly for beginners. It was supposed to be more of like a street skating scene where, you know, in Hebron, there's nowhere to skateboard in general. And there's definitely nowhere where they have streetscapes. The other surrounding skate parks in the area don't have those types of features either. So, so this rendering is pretty much made exactly off of the recommendations from the skate committee. So that's the first page. The second page is the one that was just completed in Meriden using the modular. So you can see with the modular, it's pretty much buying a skate park from IKEA where, you know, the concrete is custom.
Yeah, if we're gonna do it, we need to do it right. I was just asking if that was,
Yeah.
if it was an option.
Are there towns in the area that have something comparable? Maybe you could call them up.
I can talk to, I mean, Manchester just got one approved for like close to 900,000. So, you know, I don't think they're going.
Not call Manchester.
Yeah. So theirs is a little different. Willimantic just added an addition. It's very different than what we would be doing. But a lot of what they did too is I believe they have a lot of fundraising as well and have different organizations added into that. So,
And then so my 2 cents on this is if we make the investment and make it sort of like a premier recreation destination.
Yeah.
That could really make our town stand out.
well, that's one thing, you know, I've talked with Matt a bunch and the rec commission, you know, the two sports that where people are going to travel is skate and pickleball. I mean, people will travel all over the place for that, especially skating, because they want to say they've done every park in the state. It's kind of like that, you know, that 169 run club. There's something similar with skate, and it's just so, and to have something unique, it can set us apart. You know, is it something that maybe, you know, we can get started with this funding and look for grant opportunities, possibly, or do it in phases? We could do the concrete pad and add modulars to begin and explore other options for concrete. I just don't want to shortchange any of the kids that are going to skate. I know that there's a lot of people who, you know, think that they're not going to skate in Hebron, but my guess is they're going to come out. It's a sport that's gotten a little bit more popular since COVID because you could do it individually. You know, we're doing a lot for the younger population. We're trying to start doing a lot more for the older population, and there's this middle spot, the older middle school to high school, college age that we don't necessarily have a lot for. And this is something, again, I mean, we'd be looking at a lot of beginners and younger kids starting it. But also this would be a spot where I think would get heavily used by high school kids, and maybe it keeps them from going to Dunkin' Donuts and doing whatever else there.
One of the things I noticed under the old skate park, there was a fence.
Yeah.
I see no fence on this.
Yes, so, so again, current, I wouldn't say standards, but current practices is not to have a fence around it, and there's a lot of safety issues with having a fence. You know, natural reaction, if you're gonna fall or you're going by somebody, you grab, right? So if you're having an issue on a ramp or whatever, and you grab that fence, you can injure yourself pretty highly. So all the companies I've talked to recommended getting rid of the fence.
Yeah.
Actually, might even look the park look a little nicer too, better
Yeah, well,
line of sight, you know, and less price.
yeah, no, I just know that they had a fence.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm trying to
I
remember,
believe the
they
fence
used to
was
have a
monitor or fee.
monitor, a fee, they had a canteen,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think,
Ever.
you know, none of our parks are really fee-based, but I think, you know, having it open makes it more inviting to everybody.
Yeah, agree.
And there's no
It's safer.
liability,
I think
insurance wise.
I think it's the same liability as any park.
I guess there's a little bit more legwork to do there, right? We can ask around, but because we have a rendering now, which you didn't have until very recently, we can use this and kind of get some feedback from contractors to see, you know, if we can avoid.
Somebody should be able to give you some sort of a ballpark price.
Right. Right.
There's only so many builders.
Yeah.
You know, that's the issue that there's one in Connecticut, and that's where I got the rendering from. And they're, you know, they're decent. I mean, the company I've talked to the most are at is St. Louis, you know, and they're the ones who did the merit.
Fly them in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, you know, there might be some concrete companies that are interested in expanding what they're doing, you know, there's always that possibility, but we don't know. And, you know, it's difficult. Yeah,
We need a number.
I know.
We need a number.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
no, but that's true. We have to make sure
We
the
need a
timeline
number.
is clear.
Sure, sure.
We have a timeline, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you can do to
Yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Thank you for your efforts there.
Mhm.
Lucky.
I think for our purposes here, because we are pushing everything, I think we need to just make some decisions and just say that's the way it's gonna go and you guys need to do it.
Yeah.
So at this point, I would put a proposal, because it's not a formal motion, but I'd like the selectmen to kind of come to a decision and say, all concrete,
Mhm.
take the money we've given you, and the money, probably we can reallocate the money we're gonna take off the table for the other stuff tonight,
Mhm.
because there's two things for Park and Rec that are on the chopping block tonight. We can roll that into this.
Yeah.
And say, I'd prefer you to do phases. Get what you can get for this amount of money in full concrete. Ditch the modular. And if we have to do a phase 2 to get to a larger footprint, then we'll do a phase 2 later. But let's get phase 1 done, because this money is gonna go away.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my proposal to the board.
I agree with Keith's proposal. We gotta get this done.
So do you want to hear the rest of the status of the other projects?
I
Before
do,
you-
absolutely.
We do, but we're going to have to.
But I
make some
think,
decisions.
I think some of the things you've already said, like this is
Yeah.
a population in Hebron that is underserved. We already have other funds allocated for the other things you're gonna speak to,
Yeah.
but this is something that I would like to get done.
I agree. Yeah.
And
100%.
that's something we already have. We're just replacing it. It's not like it's
Yeah.
new.
Right.
And you don't foresee problem with planning and zoning with the new footprint right
No,
now?
I
Holding
think,
it
you know,
up?
we treat, my plan is to treat this similar to we treated the way we treated the playground. You know, it existed, we're replacing it.
Okay.
So it's not a new use, it's not, you know,
Mhm.
something we need to consider traffic and everything else,
Perfect.
environment.
All right, so, yeah, okay. So why don't you continue with the balance and we'll wrap it up.
We
because
can
it
meet
might
the
be more
deadline, we can have a contractor by the time.
Pickleball courts, that's nice. Yeah, so, obviously, we all know that it's finding space for them has been relatively difficult, and final decision has been to, remove St. Peter's Ball Field and put them there. Tom Fenton, town engineer, just came up with with the final plans for that. That should be in that packet as well. And Matt got the application ready to go, so we're hoping to present that on the 23rd.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the Planning and Zoning Commission can receive a new application on the 23rd. It's a special permit use because it is a new use to the park. So we'll treat it as a special permit as opposed to replacement of something that exists. And so it does require a public hearing. We'll schedule that as soon as possible and we'll be good, you know, in terms of permitting on our end. And then should be, I think Greg's already got a few interested parties in the project, so that one should move.
I am quite certain you'll have a great output of support at the
Yeah,
public
yeah.
hearing.
So-
Just judging by its popularity.
Yeah, so this phase, this would be considered the phase 1 for pickleball courts. This would be 3 courts, which you guys generously added a third court. Originally it was for 2 courts. So this will be for 3 courts. There's potential to go up to 6. That's our plan eventually, is to get to 6 courts. The reason for that is if 1 court's not enough, 2 courts aren't enough. 2 courts aren't going to be enough. 3 courts aren't going to be enough. That's just the way pickleball runs it. And again, in
Ken can attest to this, people travel for pickleball.
Mhm.
It's extremely popular, and I don't believe it's one of those sports that's going to disappear. I think it's only going to grow larger. So, you know, at this point, we're not asking for additional funding for those 3 courts. But if you decided to, we could, you know, use another $100,000 to $110,000, and we could build the 3 extra courts and get to 6. Or we could use that money to pave the parking lot or add furnishings, landscaping, anything of that nature. But like I said, as of right now for phase 1, we don't need any more funding. Again, that would be up to you if you decided to allocate any other dollars to that project. Questions on that one? Matt, anything?
I mean, no, I would just, if there's anything left, I think we should seriously consider investment, the full investment now, because I know there's gonna be a demand, but we won't know that for a little bit.
Next one's dog park. This is the one that unfortunately I've spent the least amount of work on. We've had a dog park subcommittee that Peter's been on as well, and we've you know, again, space has become an issue, but we've explored Burnt Hill Park. There's a section of the park past the football field where there's plans for expansion in the future if we ever need more fields. So there is the potential to put one there. You know, we would have to do a lot more planning. As I said, there already is a plan that was put together for that space. So if we did put that there, I'd want the town engineer to draw something up that would hit a dog park in there as well. With that said, too, you know, $50,000, you know, 2 years ago probably was enough for that. Looking at it now in the space that we might have to utilize, there's probably going to have to be more site work. And I would imagine it's, you know, with possibly putting in parking, the amount of fence we'll need, furnishings, landscaping, just clearing the lot. I believe we need at least another $25,000 on top of that. You know, we looked at a lot of different spaces for that, you know, and again, we have a lot of properties in town, but a dog park is considered active recreation. That's why we can't look at a lot of the open space properties, because that's set aside for passive, so.
Right.
You want me to take field lighting or?
Unless you guys had any questions about dog park.
At this point, I don't.
Yes, I think.
So I'll just start with field lighting. So you probably know that there was no permitting path within the Hebron zoning regulations to allow the installation of these light posts, athletic field lighting, that we know are going to exceed what the limit is in the zoning regulations, which is 14 feet in height. So we had to draft an amendment. We did that in actually while we're doing that, have an opportunity to clean up a couple other areas of the regulations. Because it's a town application, you know, we'll be good stewards of the land and considerate of the neighbors. So we're gonna keep provisions in there for dark sky compliance, limitations on the hours of usage, consistent with the policy that hopefully the Parks and Rec Commission will be adopting. They don't have lights now, so they don't need a policy, but they will in the future. And then, you know, some other odds and ends. But we have a draft. Actually, no, we're considering the amendment on Tuesday. There's a public hearing on Tuesday night. So we'll have the permitting path forward, and then we'll make an application for the light. Now, in this case, for the ball field that was selected, you can meet Little League standards, or you need to meet Little League standards. Those standards are kind of outlined for you. So that makes it a little bit easier from a permitting perspective. What's the best in the best interest of the kids? You know, what type of lighting? You know, how much? What you know? What do they call it? Temperature? Those kind of things of light, right? So I think that path is pretty clear cut. So, and you know, we already have renderings to that effect. So if I could just, what's the word? Address the elephant in the room. So with, and I'm gonna steal some thunder if that's okay. Sure. With the ability to illuminate this ball field, and because we're displacing the veterans ball field, there's gonna be a little bit more pressure on the ball. field.
St. Peter's.
St. Peter's, thank you. So when we're thinking about what the needs are for different park and recreation assets, and I think Craig has alluded to this in the past, the ability for the existing assets to function efficiently and effectively is even more important now. So Burnt Hill, the ball fields up there, we know have a drainage issue. So one idea we were floating, and this was kind of like in that kind of priority of concerns for the Recreation Commission, was how can we get that, can we get that done now as part of the ARPA process? Is there any flexibility in other projects, or does it become more important to address now than maybe, the extra set of pickleball courts or the dog park in order to address the drainage issue at Burnt Hill? Then we'll have no more pressure, or it should substantially alleviate any pressure we have on different fields. So that's kind of something I was hoping that the commission or the board would think a little bit about.
Yeah, and I have that next on my list. I can expand on that too. But just to go back to the field lighting real quick, right now, we're not asking for additional funding. We believe that 250 will be sufficient. Plus, if you're not aware, the baseball club had also pledged $40,000 of their own money. So that's additional funding that we'll have for that project.
But it's still just the one field,
It's
even though we
just
have
the one.
softball and soccer.
The hope is with the one field, we'll leave it open-ended to light the softball field, to light this basketball courts, the skate park, and the soccer field used as multi-purpose. So I think the hope for most people is to have that whole park lit up at some point,
Right.
and not just a little league baseball field.
Right.
We'd like to see every sport be able to utilize that.
And we were considering that in how we drafted the regulations. So there should be a path forward for any of the future recreational assets to be eliminated.
So that's a matter of equity, right? We don't want to just focus on baseball. We need
Yeah, we're not,
sports.
exactly.
It's a matter of equity.
So is there anything in the project that allows us to more easily expand it? In terms of setting up for the next potential phase? I don't know anything about.
Yeah, I would admit, we have to upgrade to the, the three-phase, the lighting, so that will at least make that comparable for the other fields. I would imagine once we start getting into the engineering of it all, we can start looking at all the other fields and see what's needed for that as well. And I don't know how it works, but I think we don't want it just capped to one thing. We hope that there be a junction that can spread out.
So you're talking bringing three-phase up to the well house?
Yeah.
Okay. Because right now it's single phase,
Right.
and you're using phase converters and things like that to power the irrigation pumps.
Okay.
So this will allow you to get rid of all of that.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad idea.
Yeah,
But it's in the vicinity, right? Because it's
it's right across the street.
It's out on 316. Three-phase was brought up 316 when Ram was built. So it is now available, which when that was put in, it wasn't available on Wall Street. So the pipe should be large enough to be able to bring the three-phase conductors from the street to the irrigation building. Change the panel, to a three-phase panel. And that would also allow you to get rid of some of the other, as I say, stuff that's actually running your irrigation pumps now, or the irrigation pump.
Yeah, and that's one thing with all these projects at vets. We just replaced the playground. That was an ARPA project that is completed, and it's beautiful. And I've been out there every day since it's been built, and every time I've been out there, there's been at least six or seven kids on there. And this is in the middle of the day. Tuesday night, I was out there during softball practice and soccer and baseball. There was over 30 kids on the playground. So we got a new playground, we got a new skate park, we got lights. I mean, all of a sudden that's turns into the park that it once was when it was the only one in town, right? You know, there's a couple other projects and some stuff we can clean up over there, but this is a great start, especially being in the center of town is really updating that park.
Mhm.
So summing up Parks and Rec, it almost with looking at this proposal here.
So before you, just to interrupt you real quick.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, there's also two other projects that are on the list that have not been approved by the Board of Selectmen that, if you don't mind, I'd like to
Okay.
discuss. So what Matt alluded to earlier about the Burnt Hill baseball fields. So we were talking a lot about baseball, but there's two baseball fields at Burnt Hill, and we all know how beautiful Burnt Hill is and how it's, you know, it's this pristine park that you know, you really don't hear any negative comments about it, except for we have a drainage problem on baseball fields. The infield just holds water. There's a couple reasons why we think that is. One, just over time, a lip on between the infield dirt and the outfield, you know, just from wind or raking, it just creates a lip. Water stays in there. That's one. Two, the clay that is in the infield is not the correct clay for a recreational baseball field. It holds water when it's wet and it feels like cement when it's dry. We're closing those fields when every other field in town is open. And that's why if you drive by St. Peter's, every once in a while, you might see a team practicing there. They use it when Burnt Hill is not available, which unfortunately is too often compared to the other parks. So again, this goes back to if we're getting rid of St. Peter's baseball field, fixing the Burnt Hill infields is an important project. And with discussing with the rec commission this past Tuesday, if they were to prioritize all these projects, that was every single person's number one on their list, was to get those fields done because of the location and just how beautiful those fields are. It's a shame that we have to close them as much as we do. They have opening day this Saturday, and from the rain today, there's a good chance it's not going to go on. Even if we don't get rain tomorrow, it'll stand there unless we put down, you know, drying agent. But we're looking, after a day like today, you're looking at $800 just in material just to dry it, and that doesn't even mean that it's going to work. So I do have a quote. It's on the last page. It's that's what they would do is come in and they would grade, laser grade the field, get rid of the lip, make there be a 0.5% cone in the middle for drainage, and then they would remove and replace the top 3 inches of the infield clay with a more appropriate clay for recreational fields. So that one is, you know, important to keep Burnt Hill as you know, the benchmark for town.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How many softball fields do we have in town?
We have 2.
So I think it's an important project, but
Yeah.
again, this goes back to equity.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned that a lot of the commission's focus has been on baseball because
Sure.
we do have quite an excellent multi-town softball.
Yeah.
And I know because I put that original project into ARPA to
Yeah,
fix
which I
their
appreciate,
field.
yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we're monitoring all the fields in town and that projects that need to be done there are brought to our attention as well, because I do feel this is a very heavy baseball focus and I like baseball. I'm a Red Sox fan. I like baseball. And I'm not unopposed to this, but I want to make sure that you and your team are not losing sight of the other sports in town.
100%. So anytime anyone brought up Old Colchester as a location for anything, I told them to stop immediately.
Right.
immediately. Softball, their numbers are lower than baseball, obviously. This being at Burnt Hill, that's why it becomes a top priority. It's not because it's baseball, it happens to be at Burnt Hill. The lights at Veterans Park, the main reason we got them on there, baseball brought it to us, just like softball brought forward the fence. So I wouldn't say it's we're favoring one group over the other. This is the work that we have to get, this is important.
No, I
So-
agree. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're looking at
Yeah.
things with an equity lens
Yeah.
as well.
Listen, the only sport that we run in Hebron as a Hebron organization is basketball through the Parks and Rec department. And we could use a gym. We could use an indoor arena. 'Cause right now we use the schools.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask for that, obviously. But the other thing is too, and I don't want to open a can of worms, but all the youth sports organizations in Hebron are multi-town. They're RAM sports organizations, and the bulk of it falls on us. So we run into this issue where we're the ones
Putting the bill.
putting the bill. We're the ones building this and building that and taking, recommendations to put lights and whatever on their fields, which again, is great. I'm glad they're utilizing our fields, but it's a lot of work, and when you have 3 towns that are just coming to one, it's a lot of pressure on us.
I would myself, as much as I'd like to see the dog park going forward, with the added costs and everything else, I'd rather see that 50 and then add another 12, do the ball field, and do the dog park at this point. Just something to consider.
Sure.
Um,
And going back to the softball compared to baseball. So baseball technically has 3 little league field compared to softball at 2. But with St. Peter's, it's 4. But when Burnt Hill closes
Right.
and Vet stays open,
Yeah.
and
I got you.
Old Colchester stays open. So
I got you. It's not a criticism.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
I'm just-
implying- I just want to
yeah,
make
just-
sure that
just
moving
reading.
forward that we track that.
And what's appealing to me is imminent.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend the
Yeah,
money. in the
yeah,
next
right,
month.
right. It's right there. Yeah, that's
I like that.
very, not to use a term we've already used, but very concrete.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I think to go back to your point, Dan, I don't think I'm willing to remove anything just yet because the reality is we still have 260,000 to play with. I would agree to adding this new proposal that they have identified as a top priority to the mix. I don't want to give up on the dog park just yet. I have a lot of constituents that ask me for it. And I think we still have some room to work with. So that would be what I would lean toward, that perhaps we consider adding this and then seeing where we end up.
Good, Heath.
Yeah, I agree with that because I don't want to start talking about removing anything up top that we've already discussed when there's so many things when we get down to page 3 that we're up in the air. I think we're going to have enough money for this and plenty of other stuff, especially as we get closer and closer to the deadline and things start falling through. Excellent point. Give me a bill and we'll pay it. Like let's get it done. So I'm all for adding this and moving forward with it immediately.
Yeah, Peter Gaspar, yeah, I would agree. And I think Tiffany make a great point about really looking at this within the context of its entirety and not trying to focus just on what's sort of in your bucket and not taking anything off. But because I think, especially when you're ready, I think that when those funds start to potentially become more available and you're ready to move forward on some of these projects, it's going to put a priority on you moving forward because you're ready to move forward. So I appreciate that. And I think back to Keith's point, I think it's clear early on that we need to move forward on the skate park as outlined because we need to move it forward. And so I think everyone's probably comfortable with that. And to your point, thank you for that. So, and everything else is, in terms of other funds noted that we might need with the skate park, with the courts, where are we with the dog park? I think we have a nice update. So we have an ability to understand what those additional dollars might be. We heard some earlier from Andy today about some monies coming back in. So there's a lot of good movement here. So I'm with you, Keith. I'm not looking to take anything off. Just want to know within the context of,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
where are the pressure points? And clearly, I think we can move forward on the skate park proposal, because I think that seems clear we have to.
And we
For the
approve
interest of the kids in the program.
Do we want to add this Parks and Rec, the ball field repair?
it. Yeah,
I
I'm ready
mean,
to do it.
yeah.
I'm ready to do
I
it.
don't know if we want to finish out the presentation, but I mean, yeah, if you want to do it now or do it then, let's.
Well, let's,
finish up.
because there's a couple of things that would look like they were coming off within your structure, so maybe we should understand what those dollars are.
Okay.
Or at least we're recommended on the document.
Oh, yeah. So trail development, which is the last one, I believe.
Yep.
So Matt and I discussed this the other day as well as the rec commission. You know, that's originally that we were looking at, you know, this, obviously we're buying all these open spaces and not every single one has access to it. So when we first purchased the Bernstein property, which is on Old Colchester Road, there was, you know, obviously a push to get into the property. So the idea of putting this in was to hopefully create a trail system in that property and possibly some other properties that didn't have access to. You know, Matt and I have been back there quite a bit, and we really like the idea of building a trail that connects Old Colchester Road, the Bernstein parking lot, which we just built recently. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bernstein project. It's on Old Colchester just before the transfer station. Public Works. So we just built a parking lot, but you can access the airline trail through that property. So the idea would be to build an access trail from there to the airline trail. And the reason for that is, one, you can build another trail system off of that. You can have the access trail to the airline trail, which is obviously our most popular area in town. But you can have another trail system within, but we'll have a larger parking area there too. So to alleviate any of the parking issues for the airline trail that we have on Old Colchester Road or Grayville, where there really isn't designated parking. It's really like 2 spots per trailhead. And we have tons of issues with people parking on the road and parking in areas where they're not supposed to. So, you know, you hope you build this larger parking lot, you have a new trail that still gets you the airline trail, and it'll come out right over past Grayville, kind of towards Judd Brook, where the first bridge is on that section, kind of over near the Eversource property where it comes out. So it'll come out over there, which is a really beautiful piece of property. So again, alleviate some of the parking issues and also have another trail. So this would be, 8 to 10 foot wide trail similar to the airline. To get there, we would have to build a boardwalk in that area. We would stone dust it. So that's one option. The other option would be the Hibbert property, which is also on Old Colchester Road, just before the airline trail. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. It's on the right side. There's a little chain fence that goes across the driveway. It's literally right before the pedestrian crossing on Old Colchester. So that's where they're doing the bridge replacement. So I believe they have to build a sidewalk as part of that bridge replacement. We believe that we could actually build parking up in the Hibbert property. Again, it'll alleviate parking issues from that area, and then also give you a better parking options for the Hibbert property, which we've been pushing just that property in general. Right now, you're parking on the shoulder of the road, which obviously is not the safest spot to be. So those were a couple of the options there. I know Matt had a couple other ideas of, replacing gates, signage.
Kind of miscellaneous. This is, probably in the event that there are extra dollars, or some of the dollars can be dedicated to town staff, for ancillary improvements, maybe T-bars instead of a gate that gets bent and looks lousy. There's probably some spot improvements that are needed on the trails in different places, but I think really to alleviate some of the pressure on other areas, where there's street side parking or, neighbor issues that, we deal with regularly, providing some new access, new safe designated parking areas to the airline trail particularly like Hebron or Bernstein, really, that could be used to provide an actual, like single track trail network access to those as well. Really opens up possibilities for those assets, I would say. Those are two really nice pieces of property, so.
So I think it was our understanding that you didn't have, if it was a municipality, if it was us using the money, is this right, Andy, that we didn't need to have the contract in hand, similar to some of the other work being done?
Like in-kind services.
Yeah. So, I don't think we were gonna come forward with like a definitive number, but just kind of put it out there that if there is remaining funds at the end, I mean, that would be a good option to put those towards those kind of improvements.
Yeah, but it'd still be nice to have a
Sure.
dollar
Sure.
number, if nothing else, just so we have an idea of what we would need for some of those improvements.
Yep, definitely.
You
We
know.
can do that.
Well, the other thing that, I agree, we're a government entity. We don't have to have contracts between, different government agencies. But the fact of the matter is that in order to qualify for ARPA, you have to have a contract. So the fact of the matter is that we could say that as a government, we're going to spend it by X, Y, or Z. But if there's no physical written document specifying the dollar amount and the project and the scope and how things are going to be billed, it ain't going to happen. Like those funds are not going to be allowed. They're just not reimbursable. So I mean, that's not saying that we can't get it done before the first deadline. It's just you don't have. So let's kind of take that into context here. Anything that we're doing intergovernmental, the deadline is not 2026. The deadline is this year. So and I like your ideas. Having been out to those properties, I am hesitant now that I'm hearing more information on the trail. I think we would be better off as a town making assets that endure over years without having a significant amount of maintenance, with sticking to parking. Because I've been to the Bernstein property, I love the idea because I would walk that myself. The trail going from a parking area down to the rails to trails, the airline trail. But I have to tell you that I've been there after a rainstorm. That trail will be washed out every single week, and we will be repairing it every single week. I'd rather see that money go to parking, because that's an excellent point. The parking is atrocious at both locations. And, I like the new one at Bernstein is fantastic. I just noticed it and I was like, oh, that's great. I didn't realize I was going in there. Having something like that over on the other property that I wasn't aware of would be amazing, because parking on the shoulder is not great. And parking spaces are much less likely to get washed out over time, as opposed to, that downhill trail at Bernstein. It's all going to end up on the airline trail and beyond.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd walk that, and it's just, it's all, even with the root system and everything, with the trees that are currently in there. And I can only imagine once you clear the trees for a trail, it's all going to be at the bottom of the hill in a week. But I do think we should focus on parking prior to that first cutoff and get some of these dollars expended.
Okay, so are you ready for sort of a summary of, you have more to present?
Yep,
No, I mean, in terms of, I don't want to cut you off if you have more to present.
I believe that's all I had, right?
Oh,
That's right.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead,
Just
Ken.
a comment on the trail development. So, just like Raymond Brook, a lot of that trail was, just the grant provided the materials, the bedding, and Craig's team provided all the labor, and that was covered under the grant. But maybe something for an upper project is just if you funded the materials, as long as the PO was placed by the end of the year for the materials for that trail, then his crew could provide that labor next year to put some of that trail development in. And maybe not in the area where it's wet. But again, just something, another option for you if you want to pivot at the end of the year. Hey, we just, another project fell through. We had $50,000. Craig, go buy $50,000 worth of aerial from whatever contractor, you could put under contract and then have flexibility to implement that next year. Just something to consider.
Yeah, we just have to look at the fine print on that one.
Yeah, I'd have to get a refinery down.
Okay.
Yep.
And would your staff be able to take that on? I mean, I know you have a small team, so.
Yeah, I mean, we built Raymond Brook, so they can build that. I can straight path through. I wouldn't be too concerned with.
Is there any motion or movement on the, hopefully I don't get around the trail rangers?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's, you know, they're doing Earth Day this weekend, so that's great, but it's gonna be little things like that. They're gonna be used to, one, be my eyes and ears out there, and two, helping cut back invasives. You know, if we get to it where we're doing blaze trails, you know, they'll be able to go out there and help me, you know, formalize, you know, single tracks and whatever else, but anything larger scale, that would be a dual purpose, a shared trail for biking and walking. That would take a lot more manpower and equipment and whatever else.
Okay, so from an action perspective, so we can wrap this up. We've looked at the amount of money that was originally assigned for the skate park would have exceeded the 20%. So the board is authorizing that move forward. So do we need to take any formal action on that?
Do you have an actual cost for the?
I don't, but I can work. I mean, I can throw out a number, or I can get you a decent or close.
So you want to do that and bring that forward in our next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have fields, which that is an item that looked like approved by the town attorney was the upgrades to the Burn Hill,
The 70 to 94.
70 to 94,000.
So
So that was
came in
approved by the
under
town
budget.
attorney. So the board, that would fall under that. So the board would simply need to make a motion, I think, to approve that to be an approved board approved ARPA project. It's already been approved by the town attorney.
Mhm.
So I will.
And that's this one here.
Yes,
That's
the
the
62,000, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I move that, Board of Selectmen, add the project to renovate the Burnt Hill Park Little League fields, for a cost of $62,405.89.
Second.
second, I think we've moved the question since we've had ample discussion and move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or please note if you wish to abstain. Keith,
Keith Pettit, aye.
thank you. Dan,
Dan Larson, aye.
Tiffany,
Tiffany Tealy, aye.
Claudia,
Claudia Riley, aye.
Peter Casper, aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this forward. And at this point, I don't think there's any other action the board needs to take on your project at this juncture. So unless I miss something, I mean, by all means, jump in if I miss something.
I mean, I would just say, as far as the trail development, like, get us some sort of something that we can action before the cutoff. This cutoff is December 24, right? December 31st,
We
24.
need it before that.
Yeah.
Well, right, it has to be.
But it's cut off this year, this calendar year.
I just had a general process question with respect to ARPA funds, projects, et cetera. Would it be in our best interest to have whatever group is assigned to a project that's been approved, like come in and present? 'Cause, I mean, for example, like the Hebron Historical Society with their cemetery renovations.
I can give you a very short update on that if you'd like.
Hey, if you know something that I don't know.
They should have a contract in hand relatively soon.
Yeah,
They
we're pushing
have-
everybody.
yeah. So they have a company that they're working with, and they're identifying the headstones that they want to fix in the ancient cemetery.
Yeah, I just feel like I want to keep the foot on the gas, like I want these stuff to continue. I loved what we had tonight. I love your style. Bring the invoices and we'll keep going. That's what I want to see on a regular basis, every meeting, really.
Yeah, a lot of it's going through my office, like the historic properties are starting on the old town hall. As soon as the rain stops, they're gonna start taking the windows out and taking them back to their shop and actually almost rebuilding them. And they're gonna start painting those buildings. So everything's in motion right now. There's nothing really just sitting.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we're just, I think zoning approvals, the lights were a big hurdle. They had to do the amendment. So next week they're doing that. So I think everything's in motion. Nothing's really stalled.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's taking longer than I would have liked it to take.
I think we all feel the same.
Well, you're clearly making good progress and you're on top of these and this is what's going to allow us to continue to support your efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for coming out too. I know it's late, so I appreciate it. Okay, so we're good on this item. So,
What she's saying is just, which is true, there's a threshold, so some of the stuff's gonna have to go out to bid, especially like the skate park and stuff like that. Just to-
Yeah.
for all the purchasing policies.
okay. So, I'll turn it back to you. In the interest of time, I don't know if you want to provide any more summary on the ARPA. I'm not necessarily thinking that we want to dive into a lot more ARPA.
Yeah, it has a few to go over.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, then we'll focus on that. I'm sorry.
I can,
Oh,
mine's
don't
not
rush.
gonna be as exciting as Greg's, I'll be honest.
We'll try to maintain our enthusiasm.
But nonetheless, there's progress, right? So little by little, and some of these are important, you know, the projects that have been sitting around for a while. So if I just run through real quick, Pendleton Drive to Library Pedestrian Bridge. Planning and Zoning Commission approved the project. Tom Fenton, our town engineer, is drafting final design and bid specifications, so we'll be able to bid that very shortly. My intention all along was to try to get that project done this calendar year, or at least contract it out. And really, the funding associated with that project here is for design services, which, you know, will be expended prior to the contract anyways. That's a steep project, so. Made some headway at this last Hebron Historic Properties Commission meeting with the Peters House Accessibility Project. That was kind of at a standstill, to be honest. There was some reluctance to commit. But I think once we finally conveyed the message that you either commit to the project or the money goes away, then they finally kind of registered, like, look, we need to do this. So we're taking a look at a slightly redesigned configuration. You probably know that the Hebron Historic Properties Commission would like to erect a barn on site. So we're trying to be considerate of where that would be located, and where parking associated with that multifunction building, because it wouldn't, you know, the intent would be for it to be a functional space for events or whatever else, which I think it would be a great in combination with the Peters House restoration. So that's moving along. I should have a refined design that I'm going to just pretty much, I've already been kind of authorized by the Hebron Historic Properties Commission to take to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their approval. So with that, I'll be able to get a pretty good idea of how much that's going to cost and refine that number. Hebron Center signage, that has probably been my most difficult project. Right now, I'm trying to determine whether DOT is going to let us use the space that I want to dedicate for this purpose. I mean, my intent is to utilize the corner of 85 and 66, where right now we have a kind of hodgepodge of different signs. My visual is a three-face, probably dry stone structure that kind of circumnavigates the corner, so you'll have different angles, and then the ability to kind of slide in or mount different event signage, all nonprofit or town-based. DOT is absolutely forbids for-profit advertising on their spaces. So I already have a kind of a decent policy. I think we would process very similar to the way we do in the manager's office now. But my thought was, if we have a set of specifications for anybody who wants to have a sign printed, they just take that format to the printer, have something that could potentially be used over and over again throughout the year. We just store it either in the basement of my building or the record storage building or something like that. And if it's a matter of just changing dates, then you just add a sticker and you're good to go. So I think that would be a really nice addition. Whether or not DOT works with us is another story, but I'm working on that. I still don't think, so right now I think we have 35,000, for construction. That should be sufficient. I don't anticipate a need for any more than that. Horton House maintenance, I'm anticipating responses from our on-call town, on-call architecture firms. So we have 3 firms. I've solicited their proposals for the structural, start with the structural concerns in the basement. And I really do think that once it comes to design, engineering services, and then the actual improvements, we're probably going to use every bit of that 81,000. So I don't know how far they're really going to go in terms of the other needs at that site, but at least we'll get something done. Because really, if you don't have a building that stands up anymore,
It's not good.
And then just to address the unapproved, but nonetheless desired 50,000 in Peter's house renovation and restoration. The holdup with that and the actually making the request, I think, was that we have 2 hurdles at the Peters house. One is we need a structural engineer to determine the load bearing capacity of one of the beams on the side porch, the porch that faces the soccer fields, which for all intents and purposes is the main entrance, or would be the main entrance. We have a plan to restore it, but without that information, we wouldn't be able to satisfy, the demands of a building permit. Building official would not be able to sign off on a project to restore it without understanding that information. So we had finally, after several months, a response that we just got from the engineering firm that was working on that project. So I should, in a very near term, have enough information to understand how much that's going to cost. And then the other holdup on that project was in the ballroom in the second floor. One of the exterior walls has a girt, I guess, another structural component that is showing signs of deterioration. And without understanding what needs to be done there, there's really no sense in insulating and sheathing and painting and all the cosmetic interior work. So the same engineer is providing that information. That's a $4,000 contract to just get that information squared away. But with that, we should be able to get a better information on what it'll take to complete that work. John Menard is kind of our historic in-house historic renovation
Individual.
individual. He and 2 other members of the Historic Properties Commission did a walkthrough, and they basically just did a complete laundry list of what it would take to completely finish the Peters house. Their total was approximately 150,000. So there is a grant round of SHPO, or a historic preservation funding round coming up. It's possible I could leverage. It's a 1-to-1 grant match program. It's possible I could leverage 50,000, assuming that we would stretch 50 as far as we can go, to turn that into 100. I'm just putting that out there. I think I could make it work in the timeline, because what we could do is commit to the 50,000 with a contractor to do the priority work. First of all, those 2 structural components, and then whatever the next most important features are, and then hopefully make a strong argument to SHPO that this 50, if we could turn that into 100, maybe we could stretch the dollar to get it, almost all those improvements completed. So, if you wanted to entertain that, I would be happy to oblige and, do what I had to do to satisfy him.
I think anytime we can leverage grant money,
Yeah,
we should
yeah,
do
of
it.
course.
I mean, I think.
And a lot of those prices that John did was utilizing non-volunteer labor. So if, we again continue with the use of volunteer labor, that would again help to stretch and close up some of that other gap. And they're basically ready to go. They just need the authorization to get rolling. The house has sat for basically a couple of years now. waiting
Essentially, since
for,
I've been here, yeah, getting up to speed, it hasn't moved much, so.
waiting for the archaeological architect to get in and do the, information. And you were at that meeting when she came through.
Mhm.
And they finally promised that they would have a number to you this week, I think.
Yeah, well, I have the work that's required. It didn't come with cost estimates, so I'm gonna have to get that information probably.
But you got the
from-
list of what they, yeah,
Oh, right.
okay. And it'd just be nice to get that project done. It's basically been done with volunteers, trying not to go after the taxpayer to fund that project. And it's been going on, how many years? Many. I was a young man when I started doing the electrical. It's just, it needs to get wrapped up and done.
So if that's a project that we haven't approved, that's sitting out there on the list, and you need to demonstrate the 1-to-1, then is that something else we need to vote on tonight? To authorize that 50,000, correct, to move it over and to approve, so you have, the backing that you need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, at the very least, because SHPO's not even gonna entertain anything without
That's
seeing
what
a
I'm-
motion from a board.
That's what I'm worried about, so.
So, yeah,
So, it's not, that grant application is not imminent. I do have some time. So I could probably take the information that came from the structural engineer and try to get some information, get some feedback from some contractors that have done work with us in the past. For example, Tom Archibald, I really think he's going to be an asset if I can engage him in this project. He's the one who did the roof over here on the Gold School.
Gold School.
But he does all kinds of other,
Okay.
he's a craftsman, really. If I could get some feedback from him, figure out what those two components of the project will cost, I could gain a clearer picture.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
great.
let's do that.
Yeah,
And then
let's
keep
do
us
that.
posted on that.
Mhm.
I think
I
that-
have one question, and I'm sorry to be a pain about it.
No.
The Gilead Playscape.
oh, yes. Yes.
So, I'm curious why that's not considered a new, replace, how you said the skate park was replacing. I'm curious why the Playscape isn't being considered as replacing what was already there.
So we're not treating it as a special permit use, so we don't need to hold a public hearing or anything like that.
Okay.
But we do need to process a site plan amendment.
Okay.
So that is a new asset on a public asset, or on a school. It's a new playground and a new location. We need to think about it in terms of safety and those kind of things. So we can move that along. Well, we are moving it along. Part of the issue, I think you guys know, was finding an appropriate location. We want to make an accessible route. Again, talking about equity, we want to make sure that really any new improvements that we're providing for the public have the accessible route, are meeting the ADA, the act. So we found a location. We had Craig's team painted the football practice fields,
Mhm.
and it appears that they are at a safe distance for us to locate a ball field on the lower.
It's gonna be close. We're gonna have to make some adjustments, but
Okay.
there might be a little bit more work. On the site that we're trying to put it in, just to make sure that there's a big enough buffer, but it looks like it's. But we have
We
other
had-
options too. We
But
can,
we own that, we already committed, we bought that,
yeah,
so
Right.
it's not in
That's-
jeopardy, it's just.
Yeah, that's fine.
we'll figure.
Okay. Yeah,
It's,
that's an important one.
We
That's
had,
important.
we had our town engineer get survey out there.
Okay.
I think they have a good understanding of how the site's gonna drain, what kind of grading is gonna be necessary to do it, what kind of route. But actually, the way we've been talking about it with the school is it might actually serve multiple purposes. They don't have a safe, accessible route in the case of a fire drill to escape the building.
Yeah.
So we can kind of clean up some
New problems.
gaps by making some improvements there. And hopefully we can find a way to do it.
Thank you.
What other stuff do you want me, should I just sit up here? Not on ARPA, but.
Yeah, I just would stay items. You don't need a computer to go through the list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so in terms of, I rushed you before, you're good on the ARPA stuff there, young man?
I think if that's all the questions, I think I covered the basics, Donna.
Yes.
Okay, hey, so, I guess to Andy or the board, anything else on ARPA at this juncture?
Did we want to remove anything as?
You had recommended, yeah.
There's the three at the bottom.
We don't have to, I didn't wanna,
Okay, you have.
unless you wanna move that to the next.
No,
meeting.
no. I mean, these have no, the three items noted in the packet on 7A, land acknowledgement plaques, affiliated water system and the fund for affordable housing ownership are items that conceptually were identified but never further developed and have been recommended to be removed at this juncture because there's no costs or estimates associated with that. So I personally think this makes sense. There's nothing here and we have plenty to do. So
Yep.
these just didn't get any traction at this juncture. So do we need a motion or just
Probably a motion.
Yeah, I would. a motion
okay,
that-
so I'll make a motion that we remove land acknowledgement plaques, Gilead Hills School, water system and fund for affordable ownership, all three items noted on the original ARPA documentation that have not come forward with any cost estimation. So I recommend that those are removed and look for a second. Second from Keith. Any additional discussion? Okay, seeing no need for discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Or if you wish to abstain, please note that as well. Keith?
Keith Bennett, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, aye.
Tiffany Tealy, aye.
Thank you, Claudia.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper, aye. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for bringing that forward. Okay, so that would conclude at least at this point our dialogue associated with the ARPA funds, or the ARPA projects, and that will move us to 7B, which is the Department of Public Works Action Committee update. I will take that. We met earlier this week. We'll be updating communication. The building, some building committee members, the town met with BL Companies and Nathan Jacobson to discuss three main areas. That meeting, I think, happened yesterday, Andy, which is a reviewing of conceptual building and site requirements, discussing a status for the design proposals. We'll be getting some pricing in the first week of May for sort of the next steps associated with the design proposal. And then quite a bit of discussion on how to phase the construction to minimize disruption of town services. That's a very complex issue, but I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that those are three main areas that were covered, and we're making some really good collective progress with a lot of good work from Andy and the building committee and the associated entities that we're working with. So making good progress there, and we'll be looking, probably get an update on the communication on the website within the next week or so. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. That moves us, Mr. Tierney, to the 24-25 budget. We'd like to address that.
Sure. Item 7C is an update on the budget set by the Board of Finance after the public hearing held on Tuesday, April 16th. Will be provided at the meeting in your packet. Give Don a chance to catch up on the screen. Your packet, we updated the flyer and we added the code as
They've
requested.
come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a draft. Everybody take a look at it. And then we have the front page that we're gonna do for a legal notice. And then you have the legal notice for the annual budget referendum that's in there. And once again, the actual budget that was approved will move to referendum along with the CIP. And I also got sent to the town attorney for review as well. And we're waiting to hear back, but I don't anticipate any problems. You, Donna?
I don't think so. The only thing that's new on there is that QR code. So
I thought we.
unless he has I don't anticipate. Bring that up.
Sorry to rush through that.
No, it's just in a different file.
Do we need to approve any of these pieces or is this just
No.
informational?
Well, you approved it, the Board of Finance approved it, so, but they need there's no motion for this. Is there?
I don't see
You
that.
approved this at the last meeting that we were gonna issue it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
unless there's anything in here that you need
Unless you want to change something.
changed or.
I think we should include the QR code every year moving forward, just because they're pretty big right now and
Now that it's here, I think we'll just be repetitive for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think we should.
That's a good change. Okay, so Andy, unless you have something there, we'll move,
No, it was a,
okay.
you know, once again, budget season is schooling, we got a lot of new, new department heads, so we had to help assist with a lot of their budgets, let alone a brand new finance director, so. It's nice to see that starting to sunset. Hopefully that passes on the first go around. It looks like we had quite a bit of support at the public hearing. That was most people I've seen in the 13 years I've been in the driving that, ship, so. That was all positive. That's good. That's good unity for the town as well.
Okay, that then moves us to 7D, any other old business, to bring before the board, Andy?
No.
Anything from the board? Okay, thank you. So that moves us to 8, eight on the agenda, which is new business.
Yes, 8A is a proposed Savvy Brothers LLC, Town of Hebron land swap. We have our town planner still with us tonight to give a quick overview of what we're looking to do here.
Yeah, so, first, I'd like to say thanks to you guys and other boards and commissions that have been willing to entertain what is, like a unconventional and somewhat creative approach to economic development. We have an opportunity to allow one of our success stories in town to expand. In order to do so, we've got to go through about 1 million layers to get there. But what we're proposing is to conduct a land swap. The town acquired, in association with a 90-acre parcel, 3.4 acres adjacent Church Street to the south of, what is it, 594. I think this one is 612 Church Street. It's with the location of the existing operation. And to the north of the property, they own about 8 acres of open space that is adjacent to the Airline Trail in the Raymond Brook. Has a portion of the property on in that vicinity. So, we were talking about how to facilitate those improvements, and we think a clean swap would be a great opportunity to win in both cases. We'll gain a little bit more open space in an area that deserves and warrants protection, and provide the opportunity for some growth, for this business. So they're talking about erecting perhaps $1 million building. And they're doing really great things down there. In order to do so, the Board of Selectmen has to hold a public hearing. So that's essentially the request tonight. There are other steps to the process. Planning and Zoning Commission will be considering the zone change because the parcel that we would be trading is currently zoned Residence 1. So, we would have to flip it to Amston Village. It's in the Amston Village district. But the development potential of that property is actually somewhat limited. It's just that the portion that is available is just so particularly useful for them, or would be useful for them. It just makes sense. Then they have to go through the site development permitting process. So they are adjacent to wetlands. The use requires a special permit approval, and they need to develop a site plan.
Yeah.
So we have some distance to go here, but I think it's it's just important for a rural community without the leverage of proximity to the interstate or these highways or anything to have to get creative in it. And it's just a good thing for the kind of the community to rally around and make this happen. So what the request for tonight is for you folks to schedule a public hearing that is required prior to sending this proposal to town meeting.
So I think this is obviously very creative and I'll ask Mr. Larson, will you read the motion and then?
I would be more than happy to, yes. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve moving forward with steps necessary for the land swap as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission to convey parcel number 10-10 to Savvy and Sons in exchange for 594 Church Street, parcel 98-1. A public hearing and special town meeting will be scheduled at a future date.
Thank you. So motion's been read. Discussion.
I actually looked this over.
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keith second. I
Sorry.
apologize.
I actually looked this over and I almost laid paper out to try to figure out what was going where. I think everybody comes out a winner. Because my original thing was, are we giving away far more than we're getting? But
Sure.
I think everybody's a winner in this.
Okay, other.
This is a, if I may.
Yeah, oh, sure.
This is a
yeah.
very up and coming company. They're all over the state of Connecticut. They're actually all over the country, and some places they're starting to branch out into other countries.
Oh, wow.
They're doing that well. They've got
Okay.
many honors from many trades associations, and they're expanding by leaps and bounds, so that for them to want to have their home base here is a home run for Hebron as well.
All right. Based on that, I'll move the question. We'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain, Keith.
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you, Claudia.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper, aye. Thank you. Thank you for your
Welcome.
willingness to continue to push
Yeah.
forward these creative ideas
Yeah.
with the support of the town. So thank you. Motion passed unanimously. Okay. That moves us to 8B. Aaron?
Yes, EMPG Competitive Pool Funding Grant Application Approval. Paul Bearcroft, Emergency Management Director, is requesting authorization to submit a grant to upgrade the radios in the EOC. So this is a grant that came out that allows municipalities to apply for grants to purchase things to enhance communications for emergency management operations. So then there's a proposed resolution to be read if everybody's in agreement to try to get this grant.
All right, let's read the resolution. Claudia, would you be so kind as to read the resolution for the record, please?
Sure can. Resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen may enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all document which it deems to be necessary or appropriate, and further resolved that Andrew J. Tierney as town manager of the town of Hebron is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of Hebron, and to do and perform all acts and things which deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents. Further, that this approval and authorization relates to the Emergency Management Performance Grant FFY 2023 Competitive Pool Funding Grant application submitted in an amount of up to $25,000 to upgrade the radio for the EOC.
Okay, thank you. The resolution has been read. Any discussion?
None.
Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain, please note that as well. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper, aye. The resolution passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Tierney?
Yes, this would jump over to 8D, which would be the Fair Housing Month proclamation. April was Fair Housing Month. As a receipt of small cities CDBG funding, the town of Hebron has also ongoing obligation to support fair housing and equity opportunities in the state of Connecticut Department of Housing Program requirement. The Hebron actively endeavor evidence its commitment. The attached resolution should be adopted to reaffirm the town's commitment to fair housing. There it is.
Are you clearing the throat? 'Cause you-
No, I know. I mean, I thought you were gonna ask me.
I will
so
ask
we're
you. No, you see Bradley.
We're getting fun.
So,
That was just really good timing. I
Yeah,
promise.
would you please be so kind as to read the resolution?
Yeah, that was just timing. Okay. Whereas all persons are afforded a right to full and equal housing opportunities in the neighborhood of their choice. And whereas federal fair housing laws require that all individuals, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin, be given equal access to all housing-related opportunities, including rental and homeownership opportunities, and be allowed to make free choices regarding housing location. And whereas Connecticut fair housing laws require that all individuals, regardless of race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, marital status, age, lawful source of income, familial status, learning disability, physical or mental disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, be given equal access to all housing-related opportunities, including rental and homeownership opportunities, and be allowed to make free choices regarding housing location. And whereas the town of Hebron is committed to upholding these laws and realizes that these laws must be supplemented by an affirmative statement publicly endorsing the right of all people to full and equal housing opportunities in the neighborhood of their choice. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Hebron hereby endorses a fair housing policy to ensure equal opportunity for all persons to rent, purchase, obtain financing, and enjoy all other housing-related services of their choice on a non-discriminatory basis as provided by state and federal law. And be it further resolved that the chief executive officer of the town of Hebron or his or her designated representative is responsible for responding to and assisting any person who alleges to be the victim of an illegal discriminatory housing practice in the town of Hebron, and for advising such person of the right to file a complaint with the State of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, CHRO, or the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, or to seek assistance from the CT Fair Housing Center, legal services, or other fair housing organizations to protect his or her right to equal housing opportunities. Adopted by the town of Hebron on Thursday, April 18th, 2024, signed Andrew J. Tierney, Town Manager.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading all that. And do we vote on a resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
we
I
have to
didn't.
vote on this
Okay.
one.
All right, so resolution's been read. I will move to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain, Keith.
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, I.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Tealy, aye.
Thank you, Claudia.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper votes aye. Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moves us to 8E, which is our draft agenda for May 2nd. So anything you wish to change or adjust, please contact the town manager's office and make those adjustments accordingly. That moves us then to 8F, which is any other new business. Mr. Tierney, anything else you want to bring before the board? Any new business?
Yeah, just a reminder to the board that you were invited to the charter revision on 4/24, 7 PM. And then also invite to Stokebrook, St. Peter's Building at 4:30, starting at 11 AM.
Usually on that, don't they request a head count type thing?
We could
It's
set
a
it
St.
to-
Peter's thing.
If you can let us know, we could fill
I'll
that in.
be there. It's what I think, was it Donna Jolly they were supposed to respond to?
Yeah.
I believe.
Father Ron or Donna Jolly?
Okay.
Yes, and some
Donna
people
Jolly.
did respond.
Yeah, I already responded.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any new business from the board to bring before the board? Oh, okay. All right, that moves us to number 9 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature, which the board may not need to discuss individually and may be voted on as a group. Any board member who wishes to discuss a particular item in this section may request the chair to remove it for later discussion and a separate vote if necessary. These would include the approval of the minutes for March 26th, 2024, which is our regular meeting budget workshop, April 4th, 2024, regular meeting, and the fee tax refunds. Does anybody wish to remove any item to vote on separately? Okay. So with that said, and so no changes, so we'll move forward for a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain, please note that as well. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Tealy, aye.
Claudia?
Bonnie Riley, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper, aye. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. That moves us to 10 on the agenda, which is the liaison report, AHN services. I do not have anything. I'll turn it over to Tiffany for any board of ed.
I just, just wanted to echo the chairwoman's comments at the public hearing that they, were thankful for the collaboration this year. That's all.
Thank you so much. Board of Finance, Mr. Larson.
Did not meet. The only thing is they had the public meeting on the budget, which. Outside of that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Land acquisition, Keith.
Land acquisition did not meet since our last meeting. I just want to thank everybody for entertaining from Matt some stuff that Oslac had been working on with the land swap. I mean, it is really a win-win for everybody. We
Yep.
get some very valuable land that's already tucked away with some other open space, and they get the opportunity to expand. So I think it'll work out well for Hebron.
Great. Thank you very much. Grand Board of Ed, Claudia.
I have nothing to report this week.
Good, thank you. That moves us to section 11, which is public comment. Donna first, anybody, public comment?
Nothing on mine.
To our sole visitor that's still here, Gary, do you have any public comment? Okay, thank you so much. All right, that moves us to section 12.
I move that the Board of Selectmen adjourn at 9:37 p.m.
Okay, second?
Second.
Second, Keith, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, it was a lengthy meeting, but obviously a very productive and substantive meeting. And so I appreciate everyone's patience as we did extend our time. So thank you so much.